IVM.
Hello, welcome and Khushamadid. You're listening to The Note with me, Mahrukh Inayat. For the past close to 150 days, the investigation into the death of actor Sushant Singh Rajput has dominated the news space. From headlines in print to primetime coverage to social media. Of the many stories emanating from this investigation, there are many who have deeply impacted Bollywood. Joining me on The Note for this episode is an independent journalist and somebody who perhaps understands Bollywood than most others, Kaveree Bamzai.
Kaveree, we've really seen about 140 plus days of breathless reporting on this controversial death. And I'm talking about actor Sushant Singh Rajput, which I'm guessing most listeners know of or have heard of or been involved in. Questions on how he died, murdered, did he take his own life? Now with the All India Institute of Medical Sciences saying that it is suicide without a doubt. I know that's being questioned as well, but for the moment we have the highest authority as far as AIIMS is concerned saying that it is suicide. Let me start by asking you, and I'm giving a context to my listeners, that this is what has happened for the past 140 days. What do you think has this done to the memory of Sushant Singh Rajput?
Well, I think it hasn't done too much to him, unfortunately. A very young, promising, talented outsider who came to Bollywood through television and did a lot of interesting films with very, very well-known directors, from... it's not easy to impress people like Dibakar Banerjee or to impress people like Raju Hirani. He did, and when you spoke to them privately, they were real fans of his work, and of course his work in MS Dhoni, The Untold Story is a classic. But I think what it has done is, unfortunately, for him, while in life he wasn't quite recognized for his work, and it is true, he didn't get the kind of credit that he always craved. Perhaps he was in a hurry, and in the industry, you can never be in a hurry. They will only grant you success in their own time, if you play the game by their rules, in the manner that they wish you to play it. He's exactly where he was in life, unfortunately. A tremendous talent who never quite fulfilled his potential for whatever reason. And in death, he remains something of an enigma, because in death as well, he is someone whose life was cut short, whose movies haven't still got the kind of attention that they ought to.
True.
He's not like a James Dean character. James Dean died young, but his movies, whether it was The Giant or Rebel Without a Cause, they became classics. Unfortunately, the same hasn't happened with Sushant Singh Rajput, because I fear what has happened to his reputation after his death, whether it is the association with drugs or whether it is the association with mental illness, both are areas of tremendous taboo in India. There's such a stigma attached to both things, and there's such a silence attached to those two conversations that we really ought to be having about how psychologically equipped are some people in the industry for fame, to manage fame. You can manage failure, but managing fame and a certain degree of fame is actually much more difficult. And I think that is really where I feel that we are really where we started with his memory.
You mentioned the drug angle, the alleged drug angle, if I may say so.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
That and so many other controversies have been made part of this, larger investigation into Sushant's death. One of the, as they say, the pictures that is going to be remembered is these top actors being summoned by the NCB, right?
Yes.
How do you think this has impacted the perception of these actresses?
a tremendous amount, because if you, for actresses in Bollywood, really, their brand is everything. And their brand isn't necessarily dependent just on the movies they do. Whether we like it or not, what Kangana Ranaut says about movie actresses in Bollywood is largely true. A couple of item songs and a couple of romantic scenes, and really that's it. That's what most of these, even the A-list actresses get when they're with the A-list stars. So their brand really is dependent on their association with certain virtues, whether it's Deepika, it's really her association with integrity, with grace, beauty. With Sarah, it's youth and, bright and bubbly personality. With Shraddha, it's a certain kind of innocence, a certain kind of good work as well. But a certain kind of innocence, a certain kind of purity, which is reflected in her films so far, whether you look at Ashiki or Half Girlfriend. So, and these actresses really, we all know the situation with pay in Bollywood. It's not equal pay for men and women. So these actresses really make their money from endorsements. And endorsements are all about the kind of image you project. Now, brands are, of course, going to be extremely wary of continuing to invest in these women. And that is really where I think the misogynistic nature of our society, as well as the whole system, comes out. Is it to suggest that the men in Bollywood are not taking drugs or are not involved in drugs? If indeed these women are, I don't think so. But the fact that certain women have been targeted, and it just so happens that one of them is a woman who is stood for, very liberal values outside Bollywood as well, and has made a political statement without actually saying much, just by appearing in JNU at a very critical moment in, the country's history. Yes. So I think that is what is very significant, that these women are being targeted in a way where it hurts them most, in their brand value, in their endorsement value. And I certainly see that there will be some kind of some kind of discussion with brands about the kind of value that they will continue to have. Some brands will reconsider their decision to put money on these women, and really the whole economy that surrounds the women actors in Bollywood is all about endorsements, public appearances, stage appearances, stage performances, and that is where the public, the reputation matters most. And I think when that takes a hit, public perception has certainly, they have certainly, fallen in the eyes of the Indian public. You can't help it. We are a judgmental nation. Yes. And I think that is what is really hurt them the most. And it will hurt them the most.
But that is one part of it, right? There are a lot of people that I speak with who say, why does Bollywood need outside support when it will not support itself? Right? Do you think that is a harsh assessment? I mean, we saw Deepika and the other actresses being paraded by the NCB for whatever their reasons might be, and I don't want to get into that because that's a whole different discussion altogether. But she had none of the biggies, as they are called, of Bollywood, speak out for her.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always maintained the fact that Bollywood, unfortunately, is pretty much responsible for the situation it finds itself in. Its constant seeking of political succor, political association, political, kind of sanction. You've seen it repeatedly, whether it's going to take selfies with the Prime Minister or whether it's appearing before him like very obedient children when it comes to talking about Gandhi. Or even if you see Karan Johar's latest announcement
Yes.
that he and very, very prominent directors will be part of this whole nation-building process, which indeed the Prime Minister had requested them to do in October last year. Tells you exactly how devoid of a spine the industry is. Here you have Karan Johar, one of the leading lights of the industry, who's been pilloried and truly pilloried so much that he had to actually take a break from Twitter by trolls who are very clearly associated with the ruling party. Whether it can be proved or not, we still don't know. We have that University of Michigan study. But the fact is that by coincidence or by accident, a lot of people who pilloried him also happen to be from the right wing. And yet, instead of actually taking a stand against the kind of trolling that's taking place, the kind of vilification that's taking place, including of himself, he does not speak up. Yes, he speaks up because he was involved in a party which he stupidly, I think, very stupidly,
put that video out.
Took a video out. But that also I'll come to later. I think that's also very interesting. The way certain people in the industry have to portray themselves as collectors of people, and collectors of sort of very young, promising stars to show their power. See, everyone in the industry derives their power from something or someone else. It could be the association that they have with certain superstars. It usually works for what are called the A-list actresses. If they are in enough movies which star A-list actors, or it could be the association that certain producers have with certain young promising stars, so they become sort of the patron saint or the high priest, to use Kangana Ranaut's favorite term, of these nepo kids, as she calls them. But that is really their source of power. So if you have such people who are in fact ought to be actually leaders of the industry, being so craven in front of the brazen display of power, brazen display of state power, brazen violation of privacy laws, brazen misuse of the media indirectly or directly. And yet what is the response? The response is to actually seek more validation from the very same state. I find that absolutely objectionable.
Bollywood keeps saying that, we are India's soft power, but we are also a soft target, right?
Yeah.
I mean, don't you think that's a very easy way of kind of saying that we are soft targets, but we won't speak because we make for news cycles to run?
Right.
I mean, I believe that Taapsee Pannu or a Richa Chadha or a Anubhav Sinha or an Anurag Kashyap who have been speaking out have as much to lose as the big stars do. Do you think the kind of, coverage that we are seeing is also because a large number of newsrooms presume that these actors are not going to come out and speak for themselves or the others? Is that perhaps the reason why this targeting has been so virulent and so vicious?
Absolutely. Now, the last time any major star spoke up for himself and fought for his community in a way, of course, it is very difficult for, say, the three Khans to always speak for their community. They're immediately expected to speak as Muslims. And that may not be their first reaction to any argument, They have many identities. Their religion is just one of the many identities they have. Yes. But of course, in an increasingly polarized India, they are seen as having that as a prominent identity. They are Muslim stars. No matter that they have played such a vast number of Hindu, characters over the years. They have actually in a way, participated in the soft Hindutva that we have seen through the 90s and through the 2000s. Rahul Raj for Shah Rukh Khan has actually participated in many more Hindu rituals on screen than I think more Hindu actors have. But I think the last time you heard someone like him speak up was in 2010, if you remember, when My Name is Khan was being released.
Yes.
And he was being targeted for having said that Pakistani cricketers should play in IPL.
Yes.
And that was when he, him wearing his hat as an IPL owner, and a perfectly respectable and perfectly logical statement to make. And he was vilified and pilloried, and of course there were dharnas outside his home. And of course, there is a sense that, there is danger and they're under threat. And at that point, I think his daughter was largely, I think, all alone at home, and he was very upset. But the fact is that was the last time he spoke up and stood up to the Sena and said that I will not apologize. After that, you have had a succession of statements. Whenever, especially the three Khans, as they're called, whenever they make a statement, whether it's about intolerance, as Amir Khan made in 2015, or again, Shah Rukh Khan echoed the same thought in 2015 later. Whenever Salman has spoken about, he spoke about 26/11, I remember, and said that it hurt India more because the elite were targeted rather than the poor, which of course you may agree with or disagree.
Yeah.
But on all occasions they have apologized. On all occasions they have said, no, we're extremely sorry, because either they were targeted online or the brands they endorsed were targeted online. If you remember when Amit talked about intolerance, and immediately Snapdeal was being pressured to withdraw him as ambassador. So they have had that argument that whenever we speak up, we end up losers. But what they don't realize is they don't end up losers. Their brand value, as it's called, ends up losing. But, that is what unfortunately has happened to Bollywood. Even mainstream actors were loved and revered and really respected. I mean, when you talk about Sri Khan, there's a tremendous body of work for over 3 decades where they've entertained loads of people, not just in India, but across the world. And they've given so much joy to so many people, And, you can't argue that their work is nothing. But for them not to respect their own work, for them not to respect their own, their own cinema and their own contribution to society, and to only think of themselves as brands, as businesses, which unfortunately they have become largely. That is, I think, the biggest failure in the industry. And I think that is what distinguishes us from Hollywood, where you will still get a Meryl Streep or a Brad Pitt talking out against, speaking up against the establishment. Yes. Because they are not just about money, they're also about art, they're also about artistic expression, which really, Indian actors ought to be as well. But I think the commerce has overtaken the art in the industry. And
very valid point. Very valid point that you make, that commerce perhaps has overtaken art.
And that's really why I think they're in a sad situation there. And, you can't even respect them anymore. You respect their work, they speak through their work. You should be happy that they do, I suppose. But I don't think it's enough.
Kaveree, one is the stars that are already established. Then there is this whole dynamic of the newer stars that are coming up, right?
Right.
And one of the things that has been discussed ad nauseum is this whole nepotism debate, right? Those with a Bollywood lineage, right, are terrified, from what I hear and I speak to a lot of them, about releasing their films now. Especially, after Sadak 2 trailer got banned, Alia got a lot of flack, Varun Dhawan has a film coming up. Do you think star kids are going to lose their sheen, at least in the foreseeable future?
this is again something that I disagree with Maruk. They all terrified, but they're terrified because they're making bad movies. Sadak 2 was a terrible movie. I mean, I don't know what Mahesh Bhatt was on, but it was a terrible, terrible movie. And now, when you look at Love Aajkal, for instance, it was released before the lockdown, but if it had been released during the lockdown, it would have been banned, and it ought to have been banned. It was banned even before the lockdown. So I don't think it has anything to do with, what the mood of the nation is currently, which is nepotism, anti-dynasty, pro-meritocracy. No. I think the mood of the nation is, give us something good and we'll respect that and we'll enjoy it. So Jaideep Ahlawat can become a star overnight, not because he doesn't belong, because he's an outsider. No, actually the viewer couldn't care less. It's because he's part of a series that everyone enjoyed and everyone thought, my God, this is something so new and so different. So during this lockdown, you've had so many new stars. You've had older stars like Nawazuddin, whose reputation has been strengthened because they've been part of really good cinema and really good work. But if you think that, because you have a famous last name, you can get away with a sad remake of something that was done in the 90s and hope, your smile and your charisma is enough to make up for it. You're doing a remake, which in itself is, I think, suggestive of the fact that there's very little originality left in the industry. Two, you're doing nepo kid, so to say.
Such a strange term.
Which is really a strange term. You've got two strikes against you. And then it's a remake which is also not very good. And all these movies are from the 90s. It's not that people have forgotten how enjoyable they were. Sadak was an enjoyable film when it was made.
Yes.
Coolie, number one, was enjoyable when it was made. Now you expect that people will forget Govinda and, embrace Varun Dhawan regardless. No. When Varun Dhawan does good work, he's appreciated, When Alia does a movie like There's Zindagi, she's appreciated. But if you do a movie which is so obviously bad,
then it doesn't really matter who was acting in the film. It will be fine nevertheless.
And it doesn't matter what your last name is, So you can even say something like Gujran Saxena, with Janhvi Kapoor. Of course it was banned, but the fact was that it wasn't such a bad movie, partly because it starred Pankaj Tripathi, who of course manages to elevate anything he's in. Again, the sign that good work and, good art is appreciated regardless of what your surname is. So I think you have to, instead of being terrified about the environment, they should be wondering what has gone wrong in the way they're choosing their movies. The way they're associating with, the directors who they ought to associate with. They should be working with newer directors, more interesting directors, not just taking, not just putting sort of a little toe in the water and then testing it and withdrawing it and saying, no, that's enough. We've done enough art for, 1 year or 2 years. No, they have to experiment more.
Kaveree, in this conversation with you, I do not want to leave the media out of it, right?
Of course.
I mean, there's no denying that there are cliques in Bollywood, right? Like you said, there are these power groups that kind of thrive off the fact that they're together and each kind of helps the other, right?
Right.
I've seen that there are actors, no matter how successful or popular, will still not find themselves on the cover of certain magazines because they're not part of that clique, right?
Yeah.
So how much is this entertainment and fashion media responsible for the so-called star culture, this insider versus outsider debate? Don't you think it fuels it? Isn't it the messenger that is kind of fueling this entire proposition, if one were to call it that?
Exactly, it does. But remember that there is a consumer out there as well. whoever says to me that, oh, look at what the media is doing, why are they obsessed with the Sushant Singh Rajput case? But look at their TRP. People are consuming it, and not everyone is a fool, or not everyone is part of the herd. It is resonating deeply in a lot of people. It is the way they are currently feeling. It is the way that people have felt for a long time. They do feel disenfranchised. They do, if they especially come from small towns, feel that they're always looked down upon. Their English is sneered at. The way they dress is laughed at. So there's a tremendous sense of discomfort, and there's also a tremendous sense of hurt, anger, rage, which has been boiling, seething for a long time. And I think now is the moment when all this has really come to sort of the boil, so to speak. Why Sushant Singh Rajput's case has attracted so much attention is because people feel something for it. It's not that people are foolish, that they're just tuning into the same story every day. They feel something there. And there is, of course, there's a Schadenfreude moment as well. There's nothing like seeing top stars being, questioned and their reputations being, torn to shreds. There's that. And this whole celebrity culture which you talk of course, we've seen it aided and abetted by stylists, by managers of managers, by the kind of agency that Kwan is. And you've had layers of people intervening between the star and the media, and that has caused over the years a tremendous sense of discomfort as well. The media has also not been very happy. It's not that they've been very happy with the kind of cutting off of big stars that has happened. And remember, most people in the media have been around for long enough to remember, the time when, say, a Shah Rukh Khan or an Amitabh Bachchan would answer your phone directly, There was never this layer of people and intermediaries between the star and the media. So imagine now that distance between the star and the media, and then between the star and the public. Right. So just imagine the magnification of that distance. So the kind of identification that, the public had with stars in the 90s, where, they would read about them in Stardust, and they would consume everything so ferociously because the material was limited, but they would still consume it, and they would still know everything, whether it was rumor or fact, about the star, and those ironic nicknames that became so famous, it was Garam Dham, Garam Dharam, and Asli Ji and all that. I mean, they became part of our culture, they became part of our pop culture. So from that to now, where stars are really very distant now from the media and therefore also from the public, that there is a moment when they say, okay, let's see them behaving like ordinary people. Let's see them come down to earth, and let's see them, walking to NCB instead of walking the red carpet at the Cannes Film Festival. So there is, unfortunately, that sense as well. So it's so many different things that are working at the same time.
I'm just going to finally ask, and I know I've taken a lot of your time, and these have been fantastic insights.
Very enjoyable.
There's one person who's been very, very important, an important factor in all of this, apart from Sushant and Riya. And that is Kangana. I'm not going to ask a question around her. I'm just going to specifically ask you that Kangana, while she has, brought down the industry, as many say, by the kind of claims and allegations she made, she's also raised some very, very valid points, right?
Absolutely.
What has the Kangana factor done to Bollywood?
Well, I think it's pretty much brought it to its knees, because remember, when she speaks from a sense of authenticity, and there is nothing that works more than authenticity. when she talks about her own drug experiences, when she talks about her own exploitation at the hands of, what she calls a character actor. We all know who he is. When she talks about this whole craving to be accepted by, not just accepted by Hrithik, but for Hrithik to accept that he had an affair with her, There's something really so sad about it and so poignant about it. Here you have someone who despite so much success and truly, when you talk about Tanu with Manu Returns, remember it's a movie that made almost 150 crore with just her in two roles, Madhavan was incidental. So, that was a movie that did so well. Of course, she was coming off a series of films by Vidya Balan as well, which sort of opened the industry and I think the cinegoer to the idea that you could have women who were leading the films rather than being just a mere accessory. So, and we'd had Sri Devi earlier as well, who had shown us that, but then of course the Amitabh era and Srikanth flattened all that. But the fact that she was able to, the fact that she did so well, she was in such popular movies, and yet she was never accepted by the industry. And when she finally did really well, say with Tanu, with Manu and Queen, then they suddenly started noticing her and wanted to cast her in movies with say a Salman Khan, and she turned around and said, no, thank you very much. I'm very happy being the star and director and writer and producer of my own movies. I'll do my own thing. Yeah. You go your way. So when she speaks about Bollywood, she speaks from a sense of great authenticity, a sense of great pain. And whether you like her or not, or whether you think she's exploiting it for her own ends, and she says she is. She's not even hiding that fact. She says that she's settling her own scores. People accuse her of settling scores, and she says, why should I not? If I don't take revenge for what I've gone through, who will? So the fact that you have someone who is so upfront about her motives and speaks of her own experience, which nobody else, I have to say, has been so frank. Nobody. And do you think that other women in the industry have not suffered similar situations? They've just, taken it on the chin and carried on. The last time anyone spoke up against a major actor was Aishwarya Rai Bachchan, and she, of course, had a lot of guts as well. To say that this is a man who caused her bodily harm and who could not understand when he was rejected, and who continued to stalk her, who continued to chase her. Remember, it was a very, very brave decision by a woman at that point. And she was also pretty much ostracized by many in the industry because they were so scared of Salman, who of course, after that, had a resurgence in his career. But, then there comes a time in, I think every woman's life where she says, okay, I've had enough, and now let me now settle down and, have a quiet life, which is what Aishwarya did. And, kudos to her. But Kangana has clearly decided that she is not going to keep quiet. She will show the industry its place, and she continues, if you see her latest tweet, to equate herself with Sushant Singh Rajput. The only difference, she says, is that he died and I'm still alive despite several attempts to silence me. Of course, there's a certain amount of melodrama attached to it. But,
quite a lot.
Yeah. But remember, Maruk, I think because she speaks the truth, it may not be the whole truth, but it is her truth. And people can see that it is her truth. She may be holding a lot back, which makes you suspect what all must she have endured to be where she is. So I think that is what resonates with people, and people think, she can't be so upfront without having something to say for herself which is rooted in reality. I think that's why she makes such a difference, and that's why people listen to her.
Kaveri, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And thank you for these wonderful insights. And I'm so happy that you're part and been with me on The Note. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maruk. It was a real pleasure.
If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are @IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm Mahrukh Inayat on Twitter and Mahrukh Inayat on Instagram as well.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Speaking of Instagram, Niharika Pandey joined Cyrus this week on Cyrus Says. Niharika is the strategic partner manager for Instagram India. Great conversation about the plans for Instagram in India. Karanjit Kaur joined the guys at Uncle Please Sit. Another really interesting conversation about the patriarchy. On Advertising is Dead, old friend Suchita Salwan showed up. Suchita is the founder of LBB. Great conversation she had with Varun. Definitely do check that out as well. Tanvi Lad, who is a nationally ranked badminton player, was on the Habit Code with Ashton Doctor. Great conversation. I would highly, highly recommend that. The Football Shitwall guys are back. They've been back for a few weeks, but definitely do check out their latest episode. Great conversation they had. On Aditi Surana's Absolutely Right, Manju Sara Rajan was the guest, and again, a great conversation was to be had over there. As always, great conversations all across the board. Check out some of the other stuff like Smile India, Know Your Kanun, and All Things Policy. All of them had fresh episodes this week, but with that, I hope to see you again next week.
नमस्ते, मैं हूँ सौरभ चंद्रा
और मैं प्रणय कोटस्थाने।
जब महफिल खत्म होते होते दरवाजे के बाहर पुलिया के ऊपर हम दुनिया भर की जटिल समस्याओं को सॉल्व करने में लग जाते हैं तो हो जाती है पुलियाबाजी।
अब आजकल के अपार्टमेंट वालों ने तो कभी पुलिया देखी नहीं होगी, पर आप फीलिंग तो समझ ही सकते हैं।
तो आइए शामिल हो जाइए हमारी पुलियाबाजी में, जहां प्रणय और मैं एक से एक इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक्स की तह तक जाएंगे।
आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, बिटकॉइन, पाकिस्तान, मेडिकल एजुकेशन, करेंसी क्राइसिस, कभी हम दोनों के साथ और अक्सर स्पेशल एक्सपर्ट गेस्ट की कंपनी में।
सुनिए हमें IVM की वेबसाइट, ऐप या अपने फेवरेट पॉडकास्टिंग प्लेटफॉर्म पर हर दूसरे हफ्ते।